Hi everyone, it's LadyJenevia. Today's video is going to be a spoiler-free review of episode 5 of Defending Jacob, which is the next episode that will be airing on this upcoming Friday. If you are looking for a spoiler review of episode 4, I will put a link to my Defending Jacob playlist, which has all my reviews of the show in the pinned comment of this video. Episode 5 is called Visitors, and if you all watched my spoiler review or even my spoiler-free review of episode 4, then you know that in this household, we love and support Lori Barber. Episode 4 was such a breakthrough to getting to know more about her as a character and the emotions that she's experiencing. And this episode definitely continues to show how much of an emotional burden it is for her to be trapped in this limbo that comes with having a loved one put on trial for murder. All of us will know from having finished episode 4 that we are building up towards a family reunion. Let's talk about J.K. Simmons, a legend, an icon. Really, everyone in my age bracket is required to know who J.K. Simmons is because of the way that he would ferociously steal every scene that he was in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. Or as I like to call it, the greatest live-action Spider-Man content of all time, and no, I will not discuss that. It's not up for debate. It should surprise absolutely no one that J.K. Simmons is here to flex his abilities, to command focus, to demand your attention. What can I say? The man knows how to chew up his lines and make everyone feel inferior to him. On another note completely unrelated to the drama involved with his character as far as storytelling goes, they had those flashbacks earlier on in the show of Andy having nightmares and remembering visiting his incarcerated father as a child with his mom. At the time, they didn't show his face, they only showed his mouth. And he had these really nasty teeth on. When I first watched this show and I was just in the heat of the moment and processing all of the drama of what was unfolding in front of me and the story, I didn't remember that J.K. Simmons was going to be in this show until they showed him at the end of episode 4. Imagine my astonishment when they show Andy reuniting with his father and J.K. Simmons is wearing those teeth. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it makes perfect sense that he would still be wearing those teeth, but I forgot about the teeth until I saw them again in J.K. Simmons' mouth, where you can actually see his face. And it really threw me for a loop. I wasn't thinking about the continuity of his dental hygiene when I was watching Andy's nightmare sequence flashbacks, all right? Getting back on track here, this is a really cool reunion to have because, as I said in my last video, Andy's one major Achilles heel that can rattle his very cool exterior is his father. There's a lot of unresolved trauma there, so this is the one time that we get to see some cracks in the armor in a way that nobody else can offer this character. I should probably make it clear here that this is actually the most difficult Defending Jacob video that I've done so far because there is so much drama and there are so many revelations in this episode, despite it only being 48 minutes long, which if you remove the closing credits and the opening credits is probably closer to 45 minutes. And I feel like I'm walking in a room where the floor is completely covered with mouse traps, where if I step even one toe out of line, some really important secret will slip from my lips and it will be disaster. So I'll just say it right now, this review will be chaotic and messy and you can take it or leave it. So let's start in a safer space. The color story. Yes, that's right, folks. She's gonna talk about color again. You know, I never intended to talk about color this much, but when I got this really rude comment on one of my reviews about how I was talking too much about color, and the man who left that comment referred to me as woman, as if I have not introduced myself in front of every video that I've posted on this channel. Ah, yes, the ever familiar smell of sexism on the internet. So my response was to continue talking about color, and I put even more blue eyeshadow on in the next review that I filmed related to Defending Jacob. We're all cooped up inside. I have time to be petty now. But once again, the creatives involved in making Defending Jacob have made it very clear that the color blue is important to the story, because there is a scene where there is a large gathering. Again, I'm going to be very vague, but there's a giant blue curtain draped on a wall, and there are blue balloons, and there are a significant number of extras, and A lot of them are wearing blue. These things do not happen by accident. It is not my fault if you didn't bother to notice it, and it upsets you that I'm talking about that instead of spilling secrets about things that have not aired yet. Color is emotion, and in this case, blue is a color of sadness. Deal with it. One of the recurring motifs of Defending Jacob as a show is secrets and lying. And now that we've had a good 4 episodes air, I can actually start to talk about this a bit more because it is one of the really central things that keeps coming up in the story. Obviously, I cannot give you examples from episode 5, but if we use the episodes that have already aired, Andy did not tell Laurie about his very unsavory family history. Jacob did not tell his parents that he had bought a knife. Laurie said she was out with her friend when she really wanted to just go creep on her work gala. And she also did not tell Andy about her run-in with the writer. Andy has not told Laurie that he started following Leonard Patz and even went to visit one of his victims at that victim's home. And also, quite recently, Jacob made a secret Instagram account. If you want to hone in on some sort of deeper takeaway from the show, I am less inclined to go towards the obvious, which would be the love that parents have for their children. I don't think that that's an inaccurate takeaway. I just think it's a bit on the nose. I am much more inclined to make the argument that the show is very much about the toxicity and dangers of keeping secrets and telling lies. What may start off as seemingly harmless little white lies can quickly fester into something far more insidious and detrimental to not only your own health, but the health and well-being of those closest to you. Without giving any sort of specifics, I would definitely say that episode 5 is keeping in line with my main analysis and takeaway of the central motifs and themes of the show. The only difference is that in episode 5, it's much more dramatic and intense. Now let's step away from this particular point of discussion because it is stressing me out trying to figure out how exactly to word what it is that I want to say without worrying about spoilers. So let's briefly touch on the topic of technology and the way that we use it in our lives. Either I am getting very old, or the people who wrote this show were very old. I have never in my life before this seen someone write woo, that's W, capital W to be more specific, lowercase u. No periods, no spaces, and had that been written with the intention that it means what's up. I think a much more natural shortening of that expression would be to write sup. Maybe it's just a Caucasian thing. I don't know, because when I see W-U, I see a surname, especially when you've got the W capitalized. If you've been watching my Defending Jacob videos from the beginning of me posting them, then you might remember that I made a point of mentioning how iPhones are connected to the cloud. And without giving anything away, I would just say to maybe remember that. In general, just because things are on our phone does not mean that they are lost entirely. It's funny to be talking about this particular point, albeit vaguely again, because I got a really snide comment about how, oh, your point about the cloud doesn't make any sense. And I wrote back to this commenter and I said, that's because it's about something that hasn't aired yet. It's really funny to have people tell you something like they know more than you when they have not watched all of the episodes yet, and you have. This episode is one of the hardest for me to rewatch, or more specifically, there's one particular part that upon rewatching, I'm gonna be honest, I fast forwarded through it because I went, you know what? I've seen it once. I don't need to see that again. We can talk about it in the spoiler review that I'll post next week, but for now I'll just say that we all have our own sensitivities to different things. Now is probably as good a time as any to give some extra kudos to Cherry Jones, who plays Joanna, that's Jacob's lawyer, and Purna Jagannathan, who plays Dr. Elizabeth Fogel, that is the biological psychiatrist that Andy and Laurie have been meeting with. Their work on the show is truly excellent, and in the grand scheme of the viewing experience, it's nice to have that contrast because you see that Andy and Laurie are starting to spiral a little bit more, and then you have these much more calm, cool, and collected characters to be the voice of reason sometimes, while Andy and Laurie are really struggling to keep it together. It's Andy and Laurie's job to support Jacob and be strong for him, but at the end of the day, Andy and Laurie are human too, and they need support. Finally, before we close off the review, as is customary, I will offer up a thirsty tidbit. Those of you who have been watching my Defending Jacob videos since the beginning will probably remember that when I posted my very first review, it was a spoiler-free review of the entire season, there was one specific part that got clipped by a Chris Evans fan page, and it started making its rounds throughout that particular section of Twitter. I'm paraphrasing here, but more or less I had said something to the effect of, "You'll know. Trust me, you'll know," in reference to whether or not there would be thirsty content for the fans that want that sort of thing. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, and get ready to make those edits. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to get in trouble. So that's all I'm going to say for now about episode 5 of Defending Jacob. I'm really sorry that this video was so all over the place, but there's just so many big dramatic moments in this episode, and I really cannot be going around and spoiling stuff like that. I've also got a new video essay that I've been writing an outline for. I'm going to try to post it sometime next week, not making any promises just yet because I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to take me, but I watched a show and I went into it thinking that I was going to really love it, and then if you've seen Guy Ritchie's The Man from U.N.C.L.E., you know how Ilya, when he just is full of rage and his hand starts shaking and his eyes get all bulgy? That was me watching this entire show that I'm doing a video on. It'll be a very different tone, I can tell you that much, because when I do my Defending Jacob videos, I'm pretty positive because I really like the show, and I think it's a very well done show. This other show, ooh, no, absolutely not. Anyway, please consider giving this video a like if you enjoyed it. It really helps out my channel. And if you want to keep up with what else I'll be posting, then consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Vero. See you in the next one. Bye.